Margaret, I first of all want to thank all of those who made contributions, including the ministers and Dr. Collins as well, who I strongly disagree with, and I'll get to some of that in a moment. I obviously want to thank those in Independence for Change, the Labour Party Speaker and other independents who spoke in favour of the bill, and to thank my colleagues as well in Sinn Féin who made contributions and obviously will be supporting the bill. Having said that, when I listened to Minister O'Connor, Minister Canny and Dr. Collins, the first thing I said to myself is, roll on the day when Sinn Féin is in government. Roll on the day when we have Sinn Féin ministers sitting where you are sitting now. And for all the talk we hear from Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael about not wanting to talk to Sinn Féin, not wanting to see us in government, I wonder why, I ask myself. And the reason why, of course, is because you do not think the same as us. You don't agree with basic rights. You don't believe that a worker who has been victimised, a worker who is on a low-hour contract, a worker who works in a big multiple store, or a worker, yes, who might work for a multinational company, who can often be isolated, sometimes harassed and bullied by an employer, can have access to their trade union representative in the workplace. You have no difficulty, of course, with employers having a right to have highly paid human resource managers. You have no difficulty, of course, with employers having the right to very expensive barristers, which they do as well, and I don't have a difficulty with that. But you do seem to have a right, with ordinary working people, having a basic entitlement to engage with their trade union representatives in the workplace. Now, some of the comments, I have to say, from some of the ministers and the reasons why they say they oppose the bill are laughable in the extreme. But they've been outdone in this game by Fianna Fáil here today, and I'll go through some of those in the short time that I have. But it's really extraordinary. When you talk about balance, first of all, what have you done, Minister, in relation to the Vita Cortex issue that was raised earlier and the issues of redundancy payments in terms of promised legislation? Nothing. What have you done in relation to if and when contracts and lower contracts? Nothing. What have you done in relation to trade union recognition? Nothing. And what have you done in relation to tactical insolvencies and, for example, not having a Cleary situation again? Nothing. So when you talk about balance, tell that then to the Vita Cortex workers, or the Lagan Brick workers, or the Talk workers, or the Woodford Crystal workers, or the Dunn Stores workers, or the Tesco workers, and all of those workers who have been treated disgracefully by employers in this state. Why? Because they can. Because you allow it and Fianna Fáil allow it, because you won't bring forward any reasonable legislation to deal with any of these issues. Again, we heard hollow words from Dr. Collins. It's quite clear he doesn't agree with the principle of the bill, because if he genuinely had concerns with what he had called weaknesses and ambiguity in the bill, which in fact I don't accept, then he would put forward amendments at committee stage. There have been several examples of bills that we have had difficulties with brought forward by Fianna Fáil that we have supported at second stage on the basis that they can be then dealt with in committee stage. And rather than throwing the baby out with the bathwater and having no bill whatsoever, what you do is you amend at committee stage. So all I can do is take from the Fianna Fáil contribution again that the brazen brass neck of these TDs to stand on picket lines with Tesco workers and show fake and feigned solidarity, and then come in here with their hollow comments and come in here then with their fake concern and feigned concern in relation to flaws in this bill. You really have a brass neck. There's absolutely no doubt about that. You have absolutely no interest in the rights of working people. You talked about foreign direct investment. This bill, and the Minister talked about copy and paste, we made no secret of the fact that this is built on what is called the gold standard in relation to trade union access in New Zealand and Australia. I've spoken to trade union representatives who work this system in those countries, and they say it works well. Employers' organisations in those countries also say it works well, because I hear all of the time from Fine Gael that the best way to resolve workplace conflict is through dialogue and discussion. So if that's the case, why not allow that on the shop floor? Why not allow that in companies or in the place of work? What do you fear from an ordinary working person having an entitlement to deal with their trade union representative? What do you really fear? What does Fianna Fáil really fear from that? We also had all sorts of concerns about foreign direct investment. There are many companies who are multinational companies in this state who recognise trade unions, who have no difficulty recognising trade unions, who deal with trade unions all around the world in the multiple plants that they might have in manufacturing and all sorts of FDI companies. And I think that's a false premise. Dr. Collins talked about the Irish Congress of Trade Unions. They have given this bill their full support. They deal and they represent trade union officials who have been thrown out of companies, who have been refused permission to enter premises to even talk to their workers, who have been turned away and who themselves have faced intimidation because of unscrupulous employers. And they have given this bill their full support, as have many other trade unions. Dr. Collins also says it fails to differentiate between unionised or non-unionised, and it links in with some of what the Minister said when she painted a scenario that you could have 43 or 44 trade unions all looking to come into a premises to get time to speak to their representatives. That's absolute nonsense. It is absolutely outrageous to put that proposition out there as any reasonable or credible reason why you would oppose this bill. Trade unions behave in a responsible way. Most trade unions operate in a company where there is one trade union. They don't overlap. It's the nature of trade unions. You know this, Minister, and you throw this out just to muddy the waters and confuse, and you know that it's not a reality. If there are flaws in the bill, and remember this is based on a model that works in other countries, so if there are flaws, well, why have those flaws not manifested themselves in Australia and New Zealand? But if there are flaws, and if you really have concerns, then you could have addressed them in committee stage. And the final point I'll make is this. The reason why you support the voluntary system is because it is a get-out-of-jail card for unscrupulous employers. The voluntary system, and it was said by Minister Canny in his speech that this bill does not appreciate the tried and tested voluntary nature of industrial relations in Ireland. The same tried and tested nature that has resulted in disputes in Tesco and Dunnes Stores and all of the other examples I gave of Vita Cortex and Lagan Brick and Waterford Crystal, and all of those where workers' rights were trampled on by employer after employer. Tried and tested? Spare me, Minister. What we need on that side of the House, on those benches, are Sinn Féin ministers that will actually deliver real workers' rights for people, not what we're getting from the ministers who currently sit there.
Deputy.